when we started C Club, some of the comments that I got were like, why aren't you going after bigger artists? Why aren't you trying to launch bigger brands? And there's two things I would say to that. One, we don't do any business development. We're not in the market or in the business of trying to convince anybody to do a token for all the reasons that we talked about before. And two, like the Web3 is really about leverage, right? You don't need to have 10 million people in a Discord to go do cool things. 10 or 100 can do cool things. And building that strong fire, the embers burning bright with a small number of people who are creating together and doing amazing things, I think is really the way we create the most amount of value. And so we've really focused on those types of communities that are building Web3 native, or at least are bringing a chunk of their communities over into start something from scratch or brand new, and having the most success with those. I know that doesn't quite answer your question, because I think the top end of that market is still so challenging. And it's also why I don't think that's it. Like when I hear about large artists coming into the space, I think they're going to be able to do all sorts of things with tokens, with NFTs, sell on song or catalog, or they're going to do interesting NFT drops or even community tokens. But I think these Web3 native brands, Bored Ape is another great example of this. These Web3 native brands are going to be the ones that endure. It's because they put the time and effort into building those tight bonds that when the market changes, as we know, always happens at some point, who's going to be left? Well, it's the people who feel like they're there for community. They're bought into the vision of this project that are going to sustain. And it's the top of the market, the general public, the people that are just chasing token prices that are not. And so it's a very easy sort of bet for us to make.
Right. And also, to take that one step further, it's going to be the Web3 native builders, right? Like if a celebrity comes into the space and the market turns, they're probably going to be like, oh, well, like, I wasn't really that committed to this anyway. Like, let's shelve that and go somewhere else. Whereas, us Web3 native people are like, well, this is when you build, right? Like when the times get tough. So I very much agree with that. I've been very, very thoughtful about how I've been trying to create those on-chain breadcrumbs, as you say. Like, I was knowing I was working with Adidas, 8 months ago, and knowing that this drop was a very strong possibility, I started issuing POAPs, for people that were like either events in real life or, people that were listening to the podcast. And I didn't tell people what they were for. I knew what they were for. Like it was for me building my organic community, not people that were sitting there trying to farm or be like, oh, there's going to be an airdrop or whatever. It's like, hey, like if you're a fan and you want to claim a POAP and you listen, you get rewarded. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me in the last couple of days being like, oh, that was, thank you for like that utility of a POAP, right? I didn't even expect that, but I was on the whitelist for Adidas because of that. So it's much easier to do it organically when you don't have a following and you're building it. And that to me is like something I think about a ton, is like, when the celebrities come into the space and they want to try to tokenize, it's just hard because there's just so much people that are just going to buy the hype.
Yeah. And I think like the breadcrumbs that's exactly the way to do it. I think there are a number of creators. So we look at RAC, who did a community token, like a very early community token, and has done a number of experiments in the space. Not a massive audience, but he definitely had a large and was a known quantity. What gave him the most power in launching that token was that he actually had data from people who were buying from his song, his Bandcamp, or buying merch, or supporting him on Patreon, going back 5, 6, 7, even longer number of years. And so having that data can be another way of solving a lot of these challenges, where if that people have been subscribed to your membership site or buying merch, etc., that you can use those data points as ways of dropping tokens to them and sort of seeding your community with people who have put skin in the game or supported you from day one. Right. The challenge is mostly celebrities or larger artists don't have that data. That data is owned by record labels or by Live Nation or who knows who. And again, just favors folks who have been somewhat independent. Now, I will say, like, I'm very, very excited about celebrities and folks with large followings coming into the space. I think there's a number of folks who are out there that are coming in for the right reasons. They're very excited. They're trying to do it right, and they're taking it slow. And so I think there's a ton of value that's going to come from folks with larger audiences stepping into the space. I think we always just need to be cautious of that, though, because the risk reward is large, right? The people do have the ability to to cash grab in a way that maybe you or I wouldn't. Well, you would now. You're so popular. You could cash grab if you want to, but maybe I wouldn't. But I think the folks that do it well and are focused on long term, and what's been surprising to me is seeing how many are actually very active in a number of these Web3 communities already and are putting in the work, and they're there anonymously. And so they speak the language, they understand the culture, they want to come out and do something big and well. And I think that's going to be a big inflection point for our space as a whole.
Right. Yeah. And I think someone, when I think of, like, let's say in the past 12 months of like a big celebrity that has done it pretty well, I think Gary Vee's done a good job of being able to come in, create value, and just really like be interactive, right? Like he's been part of the space since he became public about it. So like I think like we're gonna be getting those blueprints for how like the right way for a celebrity to come into the spaces. But it's just I don't envy the position that they're in with regards to that, because I think taking money from fans, like, because it's like to that point of like dumping on your followers type thing that like people always talk about in crypto, is like, why would you want to dump on your most fervent follower, right? Like, that's like the antithesis of like, the artist, the creator fan relationship. So I think it's going to be
Yeah.
really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you said about Gary, he's in there, right? He's active, and I think that's a big thing where the dividing line between people doing it well and not are like, are you in the community or are you not? And I think that's, you don't have to be in the community, but you probably shouldn't launch a community token if that's going to be the key, way that you want to drive value. And so the idea of agencies or management companies doing these things, I think it's just not going to play out. But if you as a creator, a celebrity, regardless of the size of your audience, you're going to jump in and be an active builder, I think there's a ton of opportunity there.